Guys, every time my music comes on, I'm like rocking, you know? So, hi guys, this is Neena Perez. This is Straight Talk, no sugar added. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with us. As you know, we are here to discuss real life topics to grow, challenge, and transform your thinking. And today I found someone for y'all. I found someone. Her name is Dr. Stevie Dawn, and she's a motivational speaker and a coach. And she's focused on helping people to unleash unstoppable success in their lives, both professionally and personally. I love that. So she approaches as everything with humor and inspiration and the energy to get people to move forward towards their best lives. And as you guys know, that's what we talk about around here. Anything that's going to help you move forward. Dr. Stevie, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. I have to admit, I was also dancing with your music as we started, so I love it.
I know, it's like, what, rocking out.
Yeah,
My son is a music engineer, so he made it for me, and I'm like, I love it. It's so like upbeat, and that's how I
yeah.
am. So
I loved it. I loved it. Great
oh,
energy to
thanks.
start a show for sure.
Yeah, thank you. Well, Dr. Stevie, I'm really, really glad you're here. And so, I just want to give you a little background on my audience. My audience are like entrepreneurs and really big thinkers. And, they love to like challenge themselves. I have a lot of clients like that as well. So I'm really, really glad you're here. I'm looking forward to this conversation. So before we get all into the nitty gritties, let's find out who Dr. Stevie is. So who are you, Dr. Stevie?
Well, oh, what a loaded question.
I
But let's
know.
see. Let's go with, because I feel like that's something you could answer differently on different times of the day.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But let's go with right now, who I am in this moment, right?
Okay,
So
cool.
we'll go with that. Yeah, I'm Stevie Dawn. I'm a professional speaker and coach. I'm based out of Mansfield, Texas.
Oh,
I've
nice.
been a business owner 4 times over. So when you talk about entrepreneurs and big thinkers, I am in the right space. I love building businesses. I currently have two that I'm working on. And for me, life really revolves around this idea of making sure that we're living a life that we define and
Mm,
not a life defined by somebody else.
love it.
So if you ask me today, I'm going to say that's who I am today.
Yeah.
Today is a day where I am trying to make my life work for me. And that's all that matters.
Yeah, I love that. And I love that you started that way because you're right. And this is one thing that I do like my audience to take away from is that you don't have to be the same person all the time. You do evolve, you grow, you change. Even like and I don't call it mindset, I call it mind flow because I like our minds to keep flowing and expanding, right? And so I think that's super important, right, Dr. Stevie? Like, we don't have to be hung up on the titles we give ourselves and on who we are right now and what we've actually graduated from or accomplished. Because a lot of us, well, we all have that, right? We all have something that we've accomplished or can hang our hat on. But I love that you said who you are today, because I might speak to you tomorrow and you've
Mhm.
shifted something,
Right.
right? Yeah.
And I think there's an element of, some days maybe I'm more leaning into my wife role, right?
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
more into my passion or my service role. And some days I'm full on CEO hat, right? And
Right.
other days I'm an entertainer. And I think that for all of us as humans, we are never just one thing.
Yeah. I love it.
And, nobody fits in a box like
Right.
that. So I feel like it's so important for all of us to embrace all pieces of ourselves, but
Mm-hmm.
also check in with ourselves to make sure that as we evolve and change, as we go with that mind flow, that where we're trying to go still adds up, still
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yep.
Because
Yep.
I can tell you that a lot of my business failure in the beginning was because I was designing things that people told me would be good,
Mm-hmm.
but not
Mm-hmm.
what would be good for me. And
Yeah.
so I also think that's just a part of it. It's embracing ourselves, but it's also challenging ourselves to say, hey, let's take a pulse check. How are you doing in terms of, are you still heading the direction you want to go? And is this
Right.
person you're being today good with you?
Right. Yeah. And you know what? I want to touch on that a little bit, Dr. Stevie, because you talked about, how in the past you believe that that's why some of those things failed, right? Because you were trying to do what other people, kind of led you to think. So I want to know, you know, what was that caused you to shift, like actually say, oh wait, this isn't freaking working, right? Because that comes from somewhere, right? We have to go through some challenges and stuff in our life in order to realize this isn't working for me. So can we talk a little bit about that, like some
Yeah.
challenges that you've gone through and how you
Yeah,
learned from it?
sure. So I think I'll go with the first one that always comes up in my head is, so back before this life of mine existed, in my previous times. So I've had this business for 8 years, and prior to doing this, I worked in higher education. I was a college professor. I worked in the college. And so when I was working in the college, people were like, hey, you have to get a terminal degree. You need to get a PhD because you're in education. And if you're going to stay in education, you need to have it. And so I went into a PhD program actually having no clue about what I wanted to study or what I was going to do with it or all these things, but because people told me this is what you have to do to move up the ladder. And so I did it. And it was literally 3 months before my graduation where I turned to my husband after 5 years in this program and said, I don't want to be in higher education anymore. Well, gee, I've spent the last 5 years on a PhD so that I could have a career in higher education. And oh my gosh, I don't want that anymore. Right. Now, luckily, he convinced me to go ahead and complete it. You're 3 months out. Let's just go ahead and get that for you.
Yeah.
You can do something else with it later, right? But that was that moment. And I think it's always those moments. Wait a second. Do I want this? No, I don't. And so that to me was a turning point because I realized, oh man, the life plan I had for myself does not feel good. And I tell my clients all the time, you got to check in with your body. Your body knows way before your brain if things are okay. So if you're sick all the time, if you're tired all the time, if you can't seem to get it together, that might be a sign that there's something wrong up here because our bodies show us those things. And so that was the first time I could think of where there was a moment. And it was just literally like a wake up out of bed moment of, oh God, I don't want this. Right. Why am I doing this? Now, fast forward, we still got the PhD, worked in higher education for another year or two, and then moved into my own career. The second time that I think that really stood out for me was about 3 years into my business. So I had been doing business for 3 years and I had been doing all the things to make all the money because aren't we all supposed to want to be millionaires? Yes. That's what I was doing. I was on that path. And so proud of myself, right? And doing all this great work. And then I started to notice I'm working a lot of hours, right? I'm working 14, 16-hour days. I'm working every day of the week. Yep. I don't remember when I last took a vacation or just even a day off. I'm starting to have a lot of migraines. I am not feeling so good. Right? Things are just, I'm starting to, and here's my sign to myself always, I'm starting to cancel things. I'm a person who I believe once I make a commitment, I hold on to it, right? If I'm supposed to be there, I'm going to be there. When I start looking at my calendar and going, I don't really feel like doing that today. Let me just reschedule that. Oh, I don't really feel like that. That is a wake-up call to me that something is wrong. Wow. Because I usually love to see people and hang out and do things. And so when I'm saying, oh my gosh, can I clear my calendar today? Right. That's a problem. And what I realized is I had built a business that I didn't like. I had built a business where I didn't like the hours. I didn't even like what I was doing. Yes, it was making me money. And on the outside, people were like, oh, you're successful. Multiple 6 figures 3 years in, you're killing it. And I'm like, and I'm miserable. Right. Like, that's not what this was supposed to be. And my husband was like, when we started this, it was to have a good life, right? Like a better life and freedom and enjoyment and fun. You don't seem to be there right now. Like, maybe we need to think about that. And so that was the second time I can remember where I really just had to say, this isn't me. This isn't working for me. And I understand it's successful, but is it my definition of success? And that's one of the first assignments I have all my clients do. Define success for you. Because I think sometimes we kind of get stuck in what society tells us it's supposed to look like.
100%.
And that's not necessarily what it is for every human.
Yeah, I just did a live last week. It's so funny. You're speaking my language. I did a live last week talking about the same thing because I'm like, oh, yeah, I reached my 6 figures. I'm successful. I'm like, am I though?
I'm always like, aren't the trumpets supposed to play? Aren't
Right.
there supposed to be fireworks, right? If there aren't,
Yes.
maybe it's a problem, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And you know what I realized too? Like my kids are all grown, they're all adults.
Okay.
But the thing is, I realized that working, I was the same thing, working 16-hour shifts, like really, I'm gonna make it to the top no matter what. And got my, my college education, the whole thing. And I realized I did that though at the expense of being with my children. I did it with the expense, and I now regret that, right? But I now will pour all that love into my grandchildren when, all my grandbabies come. But I just realized that, we have to really, and I love that you do that first. What is success? Because we don't even realize that we are doing the success of the world. But if we really stop to think about what is success for us, it wouldn't match. It wouldn't match. Right. So Dawn, I'm sorry, Dr. Stevie, that must have been scary to look at that.
Oh, yeah.
And then say, holy crap, wait a second. What is this going to look like now? Getting rid of multiple 6 figures or my business. What do I do?
Right. What do I do? Right. There's this element of like, okay, but like, I can't just quit.
Right.
Bills still got to be paid.
Right.
Like all these things. And you know what it was? It was I had to talk myself into this idea of, okay, we've made the decision. It may not change overnight, but I am now no longer accepting work that doesn't make me feel joy. And that was my statement. Yeah. If I can't feel joy saying yes to that project, I'm just going to say no to it. So I still continued to work out all the things I had already agreed to, because of course I keep my commitments and trying to do that. So my money didn't fluctuate hugely, right? There was a dip, but it wasn't huge because I just kept doing the things I'd already signed on to do. I just started becoming choosier about what projects I signed on for. And I started marketing myself in a way that felt good to me. No longer trying to be pushy and salesy and things that everybody else told me to do, but doing it in a way that was authentic to me. And all of a sudden, the projects I was getting offered were a lot more aligned with what I wanted. So I was able to start taking those and doing those, right? And what it came down to, and this is funny, I think, because as entrepreneurs, I think we all get stuck in this. What it came down to is my magic number is not being a millionaire.
Right.
That's not actually what I want. I talk to my business clients about a joyful amount. What is the amount you need to make in your life to give you the joy?
Yeah.
Because usually it's not nearly as high as we say that it is.
Right.
And once I figured out what my joyful amount was, I was like, oh, well, that's really easy to get to. Let's just get there and then let's just hang. And I've been hanging there for years. And now we've been able to start another business because I have all the time, which is amazing.
And you love it. Yeah. And if you love it and you're really showing up with, and this is something I work with my clients on too, is your energy. How are you showing up? Because if you can show up, Dr. Stevie, in your best self, like you said, now I can add on another thing if that's what I want to do.
Exactly.
Right. And so, and that's so good. That's so good because right now what's happening, and I'm sure you're seeing it too, is this really big pressure on being millionaires, or really big pressure on like, you have to make all of this money and that's how you win. And I'm like, that's such BS. And half of them that are telling you that are not there either.
No, and they're not happy.
Yes.
Let's be real, right?
Exactly.
I am a person who, yes, I believe that money makes life easier for sure. Not going to say it doesn't, but there's an element of it doesn't make you happy. It's the experiences you have in life that make you happy. It's the people that make you happy. And if, to your point earlier, if your work is not allowing you to have that time and those experiences, then the money's not worth it.
It's not worth it. And you figure that out, right? You do
You
figure
do.
that out
You
sometimes a
do.
little later rather
Yeah,
than earlier. I
right,
wish I was
right.
younger, but it is what it is.
Yep.
But I developed a lot of like autoimmune conditions and all that because of the
Yeah.
high stress levels, and that happens to a lot of women, men too.
Yeah. Oh, for
But I
sure.
work with women, so I
Mhm.
wanted to talk to you, Dr. Stevie, about what you do. So
Yeah.
now that you have gone through that journey and you've
Mhm.
discovered what you love to do and what you align with, what is it that you do? What do you
Yeah.
align with? How do you like to work with your people?
Yeah, absolutely. So, what I've really come to is that my purpose in life is to make sure nobody feels invisible.
Mm,
That's
that's
just my
good.
purpose in life. So,
Yeah.
every human I
Little
meet,
little purpose,
it's a very little purpose. Hey,
little
one human
purpose.
at a time. I always tell people are out there saving the puppies. I'm going to save the adults. So,
That's
I think
awesome.
that everything I do comes from that place. So in
Mm,
the speaking side of my business, so I do a lot of motivational speaking. I also do a lot of corporate training where I
mhm,
talk to people about how to communicate to each other. My PhD,
mhm.
by the way, was in emotional intelligence. So
Oh,
communication
great.
and
Oh, I love
emotional
that.
intelligence is
Mhm,
very much my sphere and what I
mhm,
really know a lot about. So I use that as a way to, because I think one of the things we do as humans is we don't communicate well, and we don't communicate in a way that makes the other person feel seen and heard.
right,
So again,
right.
coming back to that purpose of making sure people don't feel invisible. And
Mhm,
so I do that in the speaking side of my business. And then on the coaching side, I coach a lot of leaders in how to be better communicators and how to set goals and encourage and inspire teams. And then I work with a lot of usually women as well, not all, but usually women who are in some sort of transition in their life, trying
mhm,
to find that next step. And
mhm.
whether that's a business, whether that's retirement, it's again trying to have them define their success and then create a plan that makes them feel visible in their own life and in
Yeah,
their own
that's
skin.
good. That's
And
really, really
so,
good.
yeah, so that's a lot of my work comes in those spaces. So, kind of a draw between some of the corporate training side of life, but then also the personal and individual side of life. So, I feel like I
Yeah.
get the best of both worlds now, which is kind of awesome.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
and the thing is yeah, we can separate them, but they also align.
they all go
Your
together.
person, yeah, like I
Mhm.
remember when I was first starting, because I also help women with their transition, like
Yeah.
from either the CEO to their side gig, whatever they want to do.
Hmm.
But the thing is like I remember when when I first got into coaching a couple years ago, that my coach kept saying, you need to niche down even more. Like, are they professional women or are they entrepreneurs? I said, they're freaking women. What the hell's the
Yeah.
problem? Well,
Yeah.
stop, you know.
Yeah.
But that's awesome. So let me ask you a little bit more personal question.
Yeah.
Did you feel that you were invisible? Is that what's making you, like, driving you to make sure that no one is invisible? What was that for you?
Yeah, that's a very deep, very good question. Yeah, so I was a person who, I'm going to be 100% honest. I had a dream childhood where my parents were awesome, and
Great.
I had everything I ever wanted. But I was given a rock star name, and I was born into somewhat of a, in my eyes as a kid, a rock star family. Both my parents were musicians. They performed on stages.
Oh, wow,
My
that's
dad
awesome.
still does. He's in his 70s. He still plays music every day of his life. Um, there was an element in my childhood where I felt like the only way to be seen was to be the center. And
Mm,
whether that was the
that
center of
makes sense.
attention at a family gathering or the center of attention at school or wherever. And sometimes, especially as I became a teenager, I made myself visible in probably not the best ways,
Mhm. Mhm.
right? I made
Yeah,
some choices to try and force myself to be in those places. And that, just wasn't healthy. And it definitely didn't make me happy.
right.
And what I realized in my late 20s is that I had been doing that for so long, I didn't know who I was.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
I didn't know what it was like to feel visible for myself, to know me, to
That's
know
deep.
my own skin and what that looks like or what I want that to be.
Right.
And so I do think that the work I do now comes from feeling like I was invisible unless I was making bad choices,
Right.
right? And
Right.
so let's not go that way. But then also feeling like I may have always been visible to others, but I was never visible to me.
I love
And
that.
so how do I get visible to me? And
Right.
it's as my husband says all the time now, and we had this conversation over lunch today, what dreams are we chasing today? There's an element I think of as adults, we stop chasing dreams.
Yeah. I like your husband. I
Right?
like
He's
him.
amazing.
He sounds amazing.
He is
You
amazing.
keep him,
I
girl.
always
You
tell
keep him.
people, I would not be the human I am today without him as my partner. Like there's
That's
just
so freaking awesome.
most
That's
of
all.
my growth is because he forced it on me in good and bad ways. Also with the pounds because we eat
Right.
too much. But
Yeah.
it's all good.
Yeah, you got to take some and
You
leave
gotta
some.
take some of it, right? But I do think as adults, we don't dream for ourselves.
Yeah.
We dream for everybody else, right? You have dreams for your kids, you have
Yeah.
dreams for your spouse, you have dreams for your family, you have dreams for your boss's goals and things they want you to achieve, and that's great.
Seriously.
But
Yeah.
what's your dream for you? And
Mhm.
what makes you feel visible and feel seen and feel important and valued and worthy for yourself,
Right.
not by anybody else.
Right.
And once I realized that, my whole life shifted.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
just
That's
it
deep.
all opened up for me. And so that really is what propelled me this direction.
Yeah, I love that, right? Because it doesn't matter how perfect somebody's childhood is or how bad somebody's childhood is. You do have choices to make. And we all go through a struggle. We really do. We go through this internal struggle. Like we really don't know, especially teenagers, right? You really don't know who you are. And you do make the stupidest decisions and you think you know it all. But I'm really, I'm glad you went through that because it gives you empathy for the person sitting in front of you today. And that's something, like you do emotional intelligence. So, that's super key, right? To be empathetic to the person you are working with. So did you do that yourself? Like, did you say, okay, I need a coach or I need a mentor or, what got you on the trajectory is one thing to realize it. And it's another thing to make the action steps to do something about it. So what was that for you?
Yeah. I think for me, I've always been a big believer in mentorship, even before I knew what the word meant, right? So
Right.
as a kid, I had mentors, and as a teenager and as a young adult and in my
Oh,
career, I have
good.
mentors. So for me, anytime I feel one of these shifts, one of the first things I do is find somebody to talk to.
That's good.
And sometimes that's a therapist
Yeah.
because that's who it needs
Yes.
to be that day.
Yes.
And other times it's been a coach. So I
Mhm.
definitely feel like in my business life, coaches have been huge turning points for me. They have all taught me something amazingly incredible, valuable about myself.
Yeah.
Most of my
Yeah.
takeaways from my coaches is never about the structure. It's never about the sales techniques. It's never about the website design.
Yeah.
They teach me things about me and uncover things about me. And
Nice.
that's what builds me to that next level. So I don't believe that we do it alone. I am lucky to
Yeah.
have
Good.
amazing support in my
Yeah.
family and in my husband. But I do think that without those coaches and those mentors, I wouldn't be where I am today.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with that more. I always say that it takes that support, it takes a village. I know we say that a lot, but it really does. It takes a village to structure your business. It takes a village to maintain your business. I mean, a lot of people, and I think that especially all you who are listening, listen up. You don't got to do it alone. You'd be very surprised, right, Dr. Stevie? Like the people that surround you, the skill sets that they could have that
Mhm.
could help you develop what it
Love
is you're trying to go for. That's one of the things I do with my program as well, is that I say to them, okay, who's your village? And they're like, oh, I do it alone. No, you don't.
Yeah.
Nobody does it alone.
Nobody does it alone. Nobody does
Nobody
it
does it
alone.
alone.
Nope.
Nobody.
Ever.
And yeah,
Ever.
and that's good. That's really, really good. I'm glad that you're doing this. I'm glad you're inspiring people. I'm glad that you are pouring yourself into their lives because that's what I believe that's what a coach does anyway. You really do pour your life into these people. Like you
Mhm.
want them to like whatever that win is, you want them to have it, right?
Yeah.
Isn't that the
I, I
best like job ever?
yeah, it's amazing to see people. My favorite thing is when somebody texts me, one of my clients or somebody who sit through one of my trainings or program, and they'll text me and they'll say something like I had a client send me a picture of her garage. It's a random thing to send a picture of, but it was a cleaned out garage, right? And the message behind it was she is somebody who her dream is to buy an RV and travel the country with her husband and work remote. That's her dream. And she's been
Such a
putting
good
that on
dream.
hold for years.
Right.
And one of the things they're doing right now is cleaning out their house so they will be ready. And so sending me a picture
Wow.
of a cleaned out garage is her saying, I am making a step towards my dream. And
Wow.
it's those kinds of texts that
Mhm,
just
mhm.
waterworks, and I cry, and I'm so excited because that's the, when we talk about impact, when we talk
Yeah.
about legacy,
Yeah.
that's it. It's those
Right.
moments. It's those
Yeah.
people who say, you helped me think this is real.
Right.
That's it,
Right.
right? So
I
yeah,
know.
it's the best job in the world, and I
Best
was
job.
definitely somebody who would have never thought I would become a coach. That was definitely not. I was always
Me
like, oh, there are
too.
special people for that. That's not me. I'm the entertainer. Just put me on stage. I'm good. One on one. And now coaching is one of my favorite things in the whole world.
It really is. It's a great thing, and I love that you said that too, right? That picture of the cleaned out garage was one of the best texts you've ever received, right? In your heart and in the impact that you do. And I think that all of you who are listening, because I have a lot of amazing humans that listen to my podcast that are, either consultants, coaches, entrepreneurs, women just trying to find themselves, even men. I have men on here as well. But what I want you to understand about what Dr. Stevie just said is like those type of impacts means a heck of a lot more than how many likes you got or how many clicks you got or how many subscribers you got. Stop with that. Stop. If you are impacting somebody's life, you are making a difference in the world. And to me, that's like everything, right?
That is, I think at the end of the day, right? I'm not going to be buried in a coffin full of cash. Like
Right.
that's not my goal. My goal is not to take my money with me,
Right.
right? So
Right.
so in the end, at the end of the day, it's not going to be the money I made that makes the impact,
Right.
right?
Right.
It's the people who will attend my funeral and say she did this for me.
So good.
That's
So
it.
good.
And so
So good.
I always try and go from that perspective, right? The
Mhm.
money always, and what I've learned in business over the last 8 years, if I could tell anybody this, the money will come when you're doing the work that matters.
Yeah.
And it always does. And I can tell you there were days I sat going, oh my gosh, we're going to be broke. We're going to get kicked out of our house. It's going to be horrible.
Yep.
But if you keep doing the work that matters, the money does show up. And I never
Yeah.
used to believe that, but I truly do now.
Yeah, yeah, well, because you've seen evidence, right? There's
Yep.
evidence now. Yeah.
Yep.
So, Dr. Stevie, I want you to tell us really quick
Mhm.
about what it is you do. Like, I heard you say your program, I heard you say
Yeah.
coaching. So, I want you to just dissect that a little bit for us because I want them to get that full info before I let you go. So, tell us about what your programs are, what your one-on-one coaching, your group. I'm not sure what you do. So, go ahead and drop that on us.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, I do a group program once a year. So I don't have the group program currently, but
Okay.
definitely follow me on social media or join my email list by going to my website, and you can find out all about the group program when we do it. We do it once a year. It's 10 weeks. All about you
Mm,
and chasing your unstoppable success, right? That's what it is. And it's weekly calls, and it's a super fun community that just creates, and then we hang out for the rest of our lives together, it feels like, because I've had people who've been in that group 8 years ago that still hang out.
that's
So
awesome.
that's a bunch of fun, but really my heart is in my private coaching. So I have a 3-month private coaching package. I got a 6-month package. If somebody's really looking to make those changes in their lives and want that one-on-one intentional work, I would love to be there for you. And then really my big thing is I do a lot of events. So I have a virtual event coming up July 15th.
Oh,
I have a
cool.
live event coming up. We do live events about every quarter. So our next one will be in October. Really just a day dedicated to you, a day dedicated to your success, to your dreams, to your habits, to your goals. And I think sometimes it's about getting out of the normal life and into a day where we have to encapsulate ourselves in the learning, that we
Hmm.
start to make
Hmm.
breakthroughs and
Hmm.
we start to make changes.
That's really
So you
cool.
can find out more at drsteviedawn.com, but I would love to see anybody at an event or on a webinar, or even just getting some weekly inspiration through the email inbox, because at this point, we're all here together. We're all helping each other
Yeah.
out. We're all a part of the village.
Yeah. Oh, that's so freaking cool. Thank you so much for taking time to be on Straight Talk because I know my audience eats this kind of stuff up. So I'm really excited and also about your live coming up. So I'm going to go check that out. And I want you guys to check that out. Stop sleeping. Go ahead and check it out. But Dr. Stevie, I thank you so much for being here and like dropping all those wisdom here at Straight Talk. I really appreciate you. Thank you.
Well, it was my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. And thank you for sharing as well, because I love when it's just a great conversation and sharing together.
Yeah, me too. I love authentic, natural conversations. Let's just do it, right? Like, come
Yeah,
on, pre-scripted
absolutely.
stuff. What is that? Guys, thank you so much for being here. You already know the drill. Like, share, subscribe, blah, blah, blah. You already know. I'm going to make sure that Dr. Stevie's information is all linked below. So that way you can click on there. Go ahead and check out our website. See about working with her because I think it will really serve you well if you do. I'm also going to make sure that we mention the fact that she's going to have these lives coming up and all that. I don't want you to miss any of it. Okay. When you know that when we have really good people on here, we got to highlight these people and let them know how much we love them. So thank you guys for being here. Thank you, Dr. Stevie. And we will, we'll be here next time, right? We're always here for you. We love you. We'll talk to you soon. Bye.